Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Powell, for being here today. I'd like to associate my remarks, or myself, with Mr. Hill's remarks earlier with regards to the FDIC proposed long-term debt requirements that are based on the risk weighting of assets. I think it's an ill-thought-out proposal, and hopefully your position on FSOC, you'll be able to advise them and hopefully guide them that this is going to be held up until we actually get a Basel III rule. In October 2023, the board issued a proposal to update the debit interchange fee cap and regulation II. This is very concerning, given the data from both the GAO and Fed's own studies show that Reg II has significantly harmed access to free checking and other banking services for the country's poorest citizens. Yesterday, I introduced the Secure Payments Act, which would prohibit a final rulemaking until the Fed, among other things, studies the impact of the board's proposed rule, completes a quantitative impact analysis specifically as it relates to affordable banking services for low-income Americans, and reports those findings to Congress. I understand the Fed acted here because you feel you are facing litigation, but I urge the board to proceed with extreme caution with any type of price control proposals, especially since the first iteration was so clearly harmful. Chairman Powell, knowing of the hardship caused by this policy on low-income consumers, does it give you any pause to continue down this road?
As you know, this rule is out for comment. We extended the comment period to May 12, so we don't have all the comments yet. We'll evaluate them carefully and make an assessment. I mean, the law does assign us a specific job, which is to assess whether an interchange fee received by a large debit issuer for processing a debit card transaction is reasonable and proportional to issuer costs. This is the obligation that Congress has bestowed upon us. Not something we thought we sought, but that's our obligation under the law, and we don't know what else to do than to keep doing it for as long as that's our assignment. That's all we think we're doing, but I think that the concerns that have been raised will be things that we...
Well, hopefully you'll study this and understand that from the previous types of rules along this line, they were very detrimental to a lot of low-income, middle-income folks. As you know, the price reductions that were promised during the Durbin Amendment, for instance, the added profits actually went to the largest retailers rather than go to the consumers as they were talked about. 98% was one of the studies that showed that the retailers kept all the money instead of lowering prices as they were telling us they were going to happen. So I'm very concerned about that. So what's the legal basis for updating your regulation? You've talked about it a little bit. You believe that there is something in the law that says that you need to be doing this updating all the time, or should you be studying it before you actually propose a rule and make all these things more appropriate?
Well, again, I think our reading of the law is that it's not something you do once and leave it there. It's supposed to be reasonable and proportional to certain identified issuer costs. The implication being there, if those costs change, then this should change. So that's our reading. I think we do a lot of work. We waited a long time to change it. It's been many years since we did change it, but we do quite a bit of work to make this assessment, and we'll review the comments and the data that we get.
One of the things I hope that you consider is the fact that even though it's supposed to be on $10 billion and up, stuff all rolls downhill, and as the last study showed, the smaller banks, the community banks, are also feeling effects of this. So be sure and consider that when you start talking and thinking about this. I appreciate that. One of the things, yesterday I had two different foreign banker CEOs in my office, and one of them brought up the subject to me, which is very concerning with regards to artificial intelligence being able to impact financial institutions in this country and our banking system. And I tell people, I said, think about this for a second. You find some individual who is a well-known individual, perhaps Larry Kudlow, Dave Ramsey, Bloomberg, somebody who has got credibility, and suddenly you see an artificially produced advertisement or Facebook post, and this person says, look here, we've got 100 banks that have got a problem today. Now, that individual didn't do this. It's artificially produced. I've seen a commercial already with individual. You couldn't tell the difference between that individual and the real thing. We have just come through the Silicon Valley situation. And if you have real-time payments, FedNow, where you can instantaneously transfer money, and you have people scared to death by some well-known individual through an artificial intelligence situation, and I can tell you that China is watching this like a hawk. They are ready to pounce on this situation. To me, I've got some bills that actually would solve the problem. Do you think there's some issues here we need to be taking a look at?
Yeah, I think we're very focused on AI, many government agencies and law enforcement agencies in particular. It's very challenging. You paint one picture, there are lots of pictures.
Gentleman's time has expired.
It's interesting
now
because the
very
foreign
Gentleman's
banks
time's
actually are watching
expired.
this. Thank you.
We'll now go to the